Good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon session. We have here today Tamara Rubilar from the San Bosco, the National de la San Juan Bosco, Argentina, and she is going to present us something about some therapeutics against COVID. Thank you, Veronica. You're sharing already. Okay. Just this other preview of it. I'm not going to use the original. And that's it. Okay, thank you. Well, good afternoon to everyone. My name is Tamara Rubilar. I would like this opportunity to thank Veronica Vargas and Dr. Kaiser for inviting us to be here. We are part of the project that began in 2020 with Harvard University that Veronica talked at the beginning of the sessions. And I'm going to take you to a journey that my team made from Patagonia, and being involved in this project with Harvard and Leuven allow us to do a clinical trial for post-COVID syndrome, a long COVID syndrome with excellent results. So bear with me while I tell you the story. Well, this is not news for anyone, but everybody knows that in 2020, the SARS-CoV pandemic put humanity on standby. And in our country, the science minister and all the governments made a call for all the scientists in the country to help into the pandemic in any way they could. And my team took the challenge. We had an hypothesis. Our hypothesis was that one of the molecules, the compounds that we were working on in our lab, echinochrome A, could be able to help with the SARS-CoV virus. So by May 2020, Christian Desmachelier from the Ministry of Science in my country invited us to participate in this amazing project called Global Health Biodiversity and Therapeutics Innovations. So that's why we are here and we are part of it. Which hypotheses we had back then in 2020? We have two. Due to studies of chemical docking that we did with virologists, chemists, and biologists, we believe that due to junction of the echinochrome, even though or in the spike protein or in the M-pro protein, we could diminish the viral charge inside or outside the cells. And the second hypothesis that we had is that since echinochrome A is a known anti-inflammatory and antioxidant compound, it could help with the cytokine storm, decreasing radical oxidative stress, immunological response, and inflammation. So, who is echinochrome A, or why are we so focused on that? Well, echinochrome A is a marine polyphenol. It's a very, very small molecule. It's around 262 kilodaltons, and is normally found in a kind of, specifically in sea organs. You can find it in the spines, in the shells, in the gonads, and in the eggs. And by that time, we had a startup, we still do, called EDC, where we were able to do a biotechnical aquaculture to cultivate the sea urchins and generate a lot of amounts of echinochrome A and purify it in the lab. So this molecule has even had more than 40 years of study of physiological, pharmacological, and clinical effects. As I told you before, has antioxidants and anti-inflammatory effects. And there's already on markets 2 pharmaceutical drugs in Russia. One is for myocardial infarction and the other one for glaucoma. They're both injectable in the heart or in the eyes, and they've been in the market around 15 years. So this is a known molecule, is a safe molecule, is an effective molecule, but the problem is supply. Because it's a natural compound, it is not possible to scale up and to have it in a global demand. That's why most of us in the Western world don't know that. But we developed the technology to scale up and to put it out there at the service of human health. So what we start to do, what did we do in 2020? The first thing we did, was to send our molecule to Dr. Maidana's lab at INTA in Argentina, and try a seroneutralization against bovine coronavirus, because nobody had access to the SARS-CoV-2 back in June 2020. And in this virus, what we found is that echinochrome A was able to diminish or inhibit the SARS-CoV-2 in at least 25% intracellular. But it was even more effective to decrease the amount of virus extracellular, and that they have a synergistic effect. Once we joined the Harvard project, what we did, and we worked really hard during 2020, was to collect 135 species in pandemia, asking for special permissions, going to the sea, going to the steppe in Argentina, to try to collect species and do extracts. And we subsequently sent to Dr. Dirk Hoffman's, you heard from him this morning, 135 species. And we found out that at least 23 species had more than 10% of antiviral activity against SARS-CoV-2. Well, what they did found, especially focused on echinochrome A, our star molecule, at the Leuven Institute, we found that it has an antiviral inhibition of 20% around to the SARS-CoV-2. And at INTA's lab, with another technology, of course not with the beautiful robot that they have, but with traditional techniques, we have the same amount, around 20%. But we also found that they have 20% inhibition extracellular. So with that in mind, with chemist Marisa Avaro, we developed a dietary supplement called Promarine, rich in echinochrome A. And we had it ready for December 18, 2020. So we worked really, really hard during the pandemic. But however, at that time, vaccines were the focus of the world. And of course, it's a much effective approach than treatment. So we felt that all our work was wasted, and what did we do? And we were really, really bummed about this. But life always surprises you, and a couple of months later, we met Dr. Gabriela Larrañaga, and she's an expert in doing clinical trials. And she had read our papers, and she was wondering if our molecule could help with the new consequences of COVID that she was finding out at the Muniz hospital in Argentina. So we start to dig up to try to understand what is long COVID. Nowadays, we all know what this is. But back then, nobody had a clue, and the symptoms and what was going on wasn't clear. But for you to know, long COVID is an actually unmet medical need. There is still no treatment for it, and it has a variety of symptoms, depends on the person. If you have long COVID, you start to have symptoms even 12 weeks after you have the COVID, and persist at least 2 or 3 years. There's still people with symptoms from having COVID in 2020. So it's really, really a huge medical problem right now. So we went this March to the first Ibero-American Congress for Long COVID in Spain to try to understand the underlying, because this morning somebody said, and I completely agree, we first try to treat and then we understand what is going on. So that's what we did. We tried to treat, and then we went to the conference to try to see what was going on. And what we found out that there is no standardized treatment, and the treatments are not effective, and nobody is quite sure what to do. But what everybody agrees is that COVID pathologies are still characteristic. Did you hear me? People who are at the Zoom could hear my conference? Just lost that. Yes. Okay, so should I continue? Yes. Okay. Somebody has the microphone. Can you mute? I don't know. I think can you be mute? Okay, some technical problems. Hello. Well, as I was saying, we already know that the quinochrome A can help with these problems because there is more than 40 years of research in this molecule. And what does it do? Quinochrome A is able to stabilize oxidative stress, and by doing so, what is amazing about this molecule is that it mimics the SOT enzyme. And in doing so, what it does, it increases or improves the glutathione metabolism. So improves mass of mitochondria, revives the mitochondria, and reduces the cellular inflammatory cytokines. So with all this knowledge, we thought, why not? Okay, I cannot go forward. Why not can we use it to what is it? Okay. So we did further study to try to understand what was going on in the cells, and if even though there was all this information out there, we wanted to check at least in vitro. And again, at Intel lab at Dr. Maidana, we studied the cellular viability against control, and we could see that the quinochrome A will increase the viability of the cells at least by 20% in a dose-dependent way. And we confirmed these values at the Leuven Institute. So with all this information, we asked ourselves, maybe Gabriela is right, and maybe we can help with long COVID. So we team up. We did an amazing team with Dr. Fernando Sallarini from San Luciani Hospital, with Dr. Martin Sibori from Ramos Mejia Hospital, and Dr. Gabriela Larrañaga from Luis Hospital. These were the people who treat all the COVID sick people. So they knew how they got sick, they knew the symptoms where they wanted to help their own patients. So they teamed up with us, we got a grant for the Ministry of Science, and from the startup REC, we did all the work and we helped with the logistics. So, I cannot move forward. I apologize. So we did a multi-centric clinical trial. That is, we work in 3 different hospitals, and we follow all the ACRA recommendations regarding the focus on the patients. We use a telemedicine platform called OcusMed to collect all the data, and we work with a network of counselors because they help us to interview the patients week after week, to be there for the patients, because one of the problems with post-COVID syndrome and with long COVID syndrome is that affects emotionally a lot to the patients. So we had a beautiful and amazing group of counselors that accompanied the patients. What we did a randomized double-blind design. We put a really high bar for us. We did a 3 months treatment with 2 daily doses of the quinochrome A, the dietary supplement rich in quinochrome A, 2 experimental groups, and we analyzed quality of life, neurological symptoms, pneumological symptoms, psychological symptoms, and blood pressures. So this, I will briefly show you the results. We work with 46 patients, 22 had placebo and 24 had the kilogram A. At the beginning of the experiment of the clinical trial, we have 60% female, and we didn't have any significant differences between sex, body mass index, and age at the beginning of the clinical trial. Regarding quality of life, for those who doesn't know how this works, what one does is to do an interview to the patients and to evaluate these 5 dimensions: mobility, self-care, usual activities, pain and discomfort, and anxiety, depression. These are scales that are accepted all over the world, and they are standardized for every country. And we have all the standards from Argentina. And at the beginning of the clinical trial, all patients have decrease in quality of life. Here I show you a scale. People have to rate from 1 to 3, being 3 extremely discomfort, people who could not get out of the bed, who couldn't concentrate, who left their jobs or left the university because they couldn't think or they were in pain. Number 2 is, okay, I can go on with my life, but I'm really with bad quality of life. And number 1 is, I'm okay. Okay? So when we start, values of 2 and 3 were the most frequent among all the patients, and there were no significant differences between the placebo and the Promarine treatment. When we finalized with the placebo, the most important thing was that values of 3, the one that I told you was really, really bad, were still present. And that the placebo did not significantly improve any of the dimensions, only self-care. On the other hand, with Promarine, values of 3 disappeared. Nobody felt miserable anymore. And we have significant differences with mobility and pain and discomfort. Most of patients were really happy that they were no longer in pain. Regarding neurological analysis, what we did, we worked with a neurologist team and they evaluate attention, confusion, memory, language, and executive dysfunction. That this morning we talk about it. Well, and what do we have found when finished the clinical trial? When they started, there was up to 11 symptoms. There were people that had a lot of symptoms. They were really, really bad. But at the end of the clinical trial, nobody had more than 5, even though the people with placebo. Okay, so time helps with improvement of these cognitive problems. However, with the people who took Promarine, at 60% of them ended the symptoms. So we have a 60% improvement in contrast with only 28% with the placebo. And when we analyze the improvement, that is, if people improve and people worsening, nobody got worse with Promarine. Instead, 13% got worse with the placebo, and 90% of the people that took Promarine got better. And this is a significant value, as you can see. And the logistic regression revealed that men had 13 more chances of getting better over women. Regarding pneumological analysis, what we analyze: spirometry, 6-minute walk, asthenia and fatigue, dyspnea recovery, and high-resolution chest computer tomography image. So it was a complete analysis. And what did we find? We found that regarding pneumonia recovery, with Promarine, only 1 person got worse, in contrast with 32% of the people got worse with the placebo, and that 60% got better, instead of only 25% with the placebo. So Promarine diminished the severity of the pneumological symptoms with a significant statistic. And when we did the logistic regression, what we found it was that patients that took Promarine have 5 more chances to improve pneumonia compared with placebo. And these results were independent of gender, age, or BMI. Regarding asthenia and fatigue, even though we didn't have any significant differences, maybe due to the small number of patients, we do found that with Promarine, nobody got worse. Instead, 20% of the people with the placebo got worse, and 76% of the people got better, and with the placebo, 63%. Regarding dyspnea, what we found is that even again, there were no significant differences. However, only 30% got worse with Promarine and 50% with the placebo. 44% of the people got better with Promarine against 33% that got better with the placebo. And finally, I love this result because people that took Promarine expressed that they feel emotionally better against 22% of the people who got the placebo. Remember, they met every week with a counselor, and the counselor evaluated the emotional state every week during the 3 months of treatment. So they could evaluate how people were feeling better and being happier with their lives. So what do we find? What is our conclusion? That Promarine is an effective treatment option for long COVID patients. We already sent out for print to publish this paper, and we are writing down the other ones to follow all this information. You can find us at ClinicalTrials.gov if you have any questions regarding the specifics. But the most important thing for me to share with you is the team, because as I always say, science cannot be done alone. Science is done with a community, and we were a huge community. We team up with amazing doctors, virologists, chemists all around our country and abroad. Here is the other part of the team, of course, and I cannot thank enough the counselors. This is all the counselors that shown the path and help us to talk to the patients and to make them feel well during the trial. So to finish, just thank you all for your attention, and if you have any questions, I'm right here. Thank you.
I'm not sure if you mentioned, but how long after the acute symptoms of COVID end you need to start using this treatment? Is there a window?
No, the sooner the better. That's what we found. The sooner the better results. Yes.
Yeah, it was really interesting. You saw very strong sex-dependent differences between males and females in your neurological results, but not in your results about lung function. Do you have any idea?
Yeah, well, I can tell you what a neurologist said, because I'm not a neurologist, and they said that women tend to stress out more extreme, and women with long COVID has to keep dealing with housing the kids and everything, and probably they were worse when they started.
Do you think potentially maybe a higher dose with the women?
Yeah, it potentially could be.
More effective.
Yes, that's what we thought, and that's what we would like to see.
It's really impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah. Have you considered expanding this treatment towards fibromyalgia? Is there a similarity between long COVID and fibromyalgia?
Well, we are really open. You have to understand whether we finish in February. So we are just finished, and we are now trying to get all the plans to get because the important thing, as you said this morning, is to get the product that it does well to the people out there. So we are now going to focus on this because it's a present issue that is needed to be treated. And of course, then we will love to expand to different clinical trials. Maybe online, there's some question.
Just a lot of congratulations.
Oh, fantastic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Veronica.
So the next speaker
speaker, Christian, are you there?